6:30.
Good evening. This is the City of Paso Robles Planning Commission meeting for December 8th, 2020. I am Roberta Jorgensen, chairperson. Please note that due to the COVID-19 emergency and in compliance with the state and county shelter-at-home orders, and is allowed by the Governor's Executive Order N-2920, which allows for a deviation of teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act, Planning Commission meetings will be held by teleconference only until further notice. A video stream of Planning Commission meeting presentations will be live streamed and available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link, www.prcity.com/YouTube. Rather than attending in person, project applicants and members of the public must call 805-865-7276 to participate via phone. The phone line will open just prior to the start of the meeting at 6:30 p.m. or written public comments can be submitted via email to planning@prcity.com. Written comments received prior to 12 o'clock noon on the day of the meeting will be posted as an addendum to the agenda online at www.prcity.com/agenda center/planning-commission-5. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item. So I will call this meeting to order. Commissioner Davis, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'd be happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. And may we have the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Davis?
Present.
Commissioner Christensen?
Present.
Commissioner Kogler?
Here.
Commissioner Neal?
Here.
Commissioner Castillo?
Here.
Commissioner Gibson?
Here.
Chairperson Jorgensen?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. May we have staff introductions, please?
Yes, Warren Frace, Community Development Director. With me tonight is Darren Nash, our City Planner, Katie Bannister, our Assistant Planner, Dave Athey, the City Engineers here, along with Jessica Ferguson and Ashley Peterson, our Administrative Support Staff.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any general public comments regarding matters not on the agenda?
No, ma'am, we do not.
All right, thank you. And are there any agenda items proposed to be tabled or rescheduled?
There are none.
All right, then we will go to agenda item number 1, Development Plan PD 20-07, 24,800 square foot warehouse building for All About Events located at 2940 American Way. May we have a staff report?
Thank you, Chairperson Jorgensen. That is correct. This is a development plan for All About Events, which is an event equipment rental company. Let's see. So this is PD 20-07. And let's move into the presentation here. So this is the location. This is out by the Paso Robles Airport. You can see just to the west of the airport. It's a new subdivision that was approved by the Planning Commission 2 years ago. Yes, 2 years ago is correct. So there's a star showing you where the lot is. So north of Dry Creek Road, west of Airport Road, and north of Buena Vista as well. Okay, so here is the parcel map that the Planning Commission approved back in 2018. 4 parcels. American Way is a private drive that was created by this parcel map. Parcel 1 is already developed. The Planning Commission approved a development plan for Greg Wyman. He has a contract construction business there. We've seen a tentative design for parcel 3 that's still in the works, but here's kind of an idea of the site plan that that applicant has in mind. And then tonight for your consideration is All About Events, which would be on the southeast parcel, a large warehouse building with some landscaping and parking and so forth. So here's how the entire site will work in a general manner. Of course, we don't know what's proposed for parcel 2 at this time. So parcel 1, which is that northwest corner, has been developed by Mr. Wyman. So this is the building that was proposed and approved by the Planning Commission and has now been constructed. And we are in this picture standing more or less in the subject parcel. So tonight for your consideration is a new building for All About Events. This is a perspective of the front of the building. This is a large storage building. Jump in here. So the proposed building is not quite 2,500 square feet. This is a floor plan. The lower floor in the front, there's a showroom with some offices and conference space for the business. There's a big storage area in the middle of the building, and then a dishwashing area and some loading and receiving areas towards the rear of the building. There is an upper floor towards the front of the building, some additional offices that look down on the showroom, and in the rear over the dishwashing area, there's an additional mezzanine that is additional storage, I believe for dishes primarily. So primarily a big storage space with some offices up in the front. So looking at the exterior elevations, the DRC did review this and along with staff are really pleased with the appearance of the building for this industrially zoned property. You can see on the right-hand side some of the finishes. There's going to be concrete tilt-up panels, but interspersed with some fluted concrete and some smooth concrete panels, and then some hardy board to simulate wood, in addition to some corrugated metal panels. So large square building, but well articulated with a mix of materials and colors to mask the large mass, or to screen is the wrong word, to sort of minimize the large mass of the building and provide an interesting building to look at. So in that previous, this is the front elevation, and then the elevation along the bottom is what you would see along American Way, that new private drive. This is the rear of the building, the west elevation, and then driving north on Airport Road, the bottom elevation there is what you would see. You can see there would be a fenced area along that south elevation, kind of some wooden fence towards the front, metal fencing along most of the side, and then some more wood fencing at the rear. Some perspective drawings. This is the rear of the building. You can see that the loading area would include a depressed area where cars could back in and be loaded with the equipment that they're going to be taking to their events. This is a perspective of the front. You can see how the new proposed fencing would interact with the building. So looking at the site plan, you can see American Way there on the north side of the property. The dotted line in the middle of American Way is the actual property line. So you see that there's some parking that's proposed within American Way, and that'll be a point of discussion here in a couple slides. But you can see there that those parking spaces within American Way are actually on the property that will also house All About Events. So big building in the middle, there's a parking area in the front with 11 parking spaces, 10 parking spaces at the rear and those loading docks. There's also a garbage collection area at the rear. So as I mentioned, parking, so the DRC did review this. They had kind of 3 general areas of concern. This first was about parking. A warehouse use of this size, 2,500 square feet, does require 25 spaces for storage use. The proposed site plan does show 21 spaces in the front and rear parking lots. There is parking proposed in American Way. We don't typically accept parking within streets to satisfy the on-site parking requirements. American Way is, however, a private drive. The city engineer is on the line, but my understanding is that a driveway of this variety could have been as narrow as 20 feet wide and satisfy city requirements. It was instead built to 38 feet wide with the intention that there would be parking on both sides, and the original subdivider had intended for those parking spaces to be included in the adjacent properties' parking requirement. In this situation, this is not a use that's likely to have a huge parking demand. This is parking that's on the same property with the intended use, and staff feels comfortable recommending that we approve these parking spaces. It's a unique situation with a private driveway, and so that is something that the Planning Commission needs to consider this evening. One thing that staff does, whenever an applicant comes in with a storage building, we try to encourage them to include additional parking. Warehousing has the lowest parking requirement of all uses in the city. The next least restrictive parking requirement is 1 per 500 square feet, which is twice as much parking as is required for a warehouse. So if in the future some other use wanted to go into this building, it could limit its use. And so we did discuss with the applicant, were there opportunities to provide additional parking for a future user. They did mention that that depressed loading area could be filled in, and an additional row of parking could be provided along the rear of the building. So that's one area where additional parking could be provided. And then along the south side of the building is another area where additional parking could be provided in the future if ever needed. The next concern of the DRC was signage. In the top right-hand corner, you can see what the DRC saw with their review. There were 4 different logo signs, 3 on the front of the building and 1 on that north elevation. In addition, there were 2 signs that had the business name horizontally oriented and then a vertically oriented on that sort of pop-out entry area. DRC felt like it was quite a bit of individual signage. It didn't have a very coherent look, and so recommended that they might want to bring back a new master sign program in the future. The applicant did provide the image on the bottom here, where it's just 2 of those logos. Each of those is 25 square feet in size, and then just a horizontal business identification sign that would be vertically oriented for all about events. So the way the staff report is, the resolution is written tonight, if the applicant wanted to utilize this sign program, they would be able to without going back to DRC for that review. If they wanted any additional signage or to alter what they've proposed, that would then go back to DRC. The final issue that the DRC asked for more clarification was on fencing. At the time, the applicant had not provided any information on what they intended to, what fencing they intended to use. And so you can see in the top right-hand corner, that's the site plan. The areas in orange are where a wooden fence is proposed, about 16 feet of it along the north and south ends, the east and west ends of that south line of fencing, and then metal fence along the middle. So this is the proposed fencing plan. And that's the only area where fencing is proposed. The applicant does not intend to do any outdoor storage other than they do have some large box fans, and so those would be stored along the south end of the building within this fenced area. So they did also provide a nice landscape plan. Most of the trees ringing the project are oak trees. The landscaping goes all the way to Airport Road, which will have a nice view in the front. And then there's some tall landscaping along that north narrow landscaping strip along the north of the building. Here's a look at the plant selections. You've got the tiny tower. I always forget the cypress trees that would be along the building, some other nice drought-tolerant varieties, and then the oak trees down there to the right. There are not very many conditions put on this project. The project really is a nicely designed and it's sensitive to its site. There is a condition about outdoor storage being screened if there ever is any, and that the outdoor storage not occur in front of the building. There's conditions about signage that I already discussed. The parcel map that was approved a couple years ago did include kit fox mitigation that still needs to be enacted for this particular parcel. So that's a condition of this plan. It's really a condition of the original parcel map, but it's carried forward in this development plan. There are some airport-related conditions that come through the city engineer, and then currently, I actually am I'm not sure how tall the fence is proposed. That's something I'm hoping the applicant might explain to us. At this, just by code, the applicant has the right to install fencing up to 6 feet in height. If the applicant intends to do taller fences, we might want to think about putting a condition in the development plan. Larry Gabriel's office, if you know that the fencing needs to be taller, please make sure to make that part of your presentation this evening. This is eligible for a Class 32 CEQA exemption. Class 32 CEQA exemptions are for infill developments. They have to be on areas that are less than 5 acres and surrounded by urban uses. The project has to be consistent with the general plan and the zoning ordinance. There can't be any habitat value. As we discussed, the habitat has already been mitigated through the parcel map, and then no significant traffic noise, air quality, or water quality impacts, and the site has to be served by adequate utilities and services, and all of those findings, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission make those findings and consider or determine that the project is exempt from CEQA. So the Planning Commission does have a list of findings that need to be made. They include that the project is consistent with not only the general plan and the zoning ordinance, but also the industrial design guidelines and the airport land use plan, that the project is not detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, that the project is sensitive to the character of the surrounding area. There's additional findings in the resolution, but these help to summarize the findings that the Planning Commission must make. The Planning Commission, as always, does have options. The first would be to adopt the draft resolution that would approve Plan Development 20-07. If the Planning Commission wants to make any modifications, they have that option. If the Planning Commission needs more information, they could refer the project back to staff. And if the Planning Commission feels that the project is not appropriate at this location, they could adopt findings to deny the project. Staff does recommend that the Planning Commission approve. Oh, there's some animations. Recommendation that the staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt the draft resolution to approve the plan development based on findings and subject to site-specific conditions of approval. I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much, Katie. Let's go around to see if there are questions from the commission, and I'll start with Commissioner Kogler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was on DRC when this came before us, and first off, Katie, a nice job on the report and hitting the buttons and the topics we had talked about at DRC as a part of your overall report, specifically the fencing, the parking, and the signage. And I think the applicant has addressed all of those in an admirable way, and I really don't have any questions. I think this looks good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Davis?
I was not on DRC, so I have some quick questions. I do think it's a very appealing development overall, but I wanted to know if the fencing is, Katie, comparable to what we're seeing across the road in some of our new developments in terms of type and height.
So the fencing that was proposed for the RV storage over on Dry Creek Road is going to be the metal tubular fencing. We have seen some chain link with slats used in the area. Staff has been recommending different, more attractive fencing types, but there's a mixture out there. The Wyman project, which is not right on Airport Road, does have chain link. Because this project is closer to the road and at a gateway, the DRC did feel like chain link with slats would not be appropriate in this location. So there's a mixture out there, the different types of fencing.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is very nice. So they have moved away from the slat format of fencing, is what I understand you to say.
That's correct.
And then a question on the parking on what is it called, America Way or something? That can I see that picture again? Yeah, American Way. I understand there's some parking there, and it is a private park. or private easement, so to speak. Should the parcel develop to the north, and if they too wanted to have parking in the easement area, would there be, this is a question, would there be enough area for trucks to go to and from to service that overall development?
So the driveway would still exceed the 20 feet, the minimum requirement. The city engineer is on the line and could probably speak to this a bit more. So David, the pavement out there is 38 feet wide.
Yes, that's correct. And so the applicant who actually did the lot split, Mr. Wyman, he set this up because to accommodate larger vehicles, because he runs a construction company, and his yard in the back is actually his corp yard. So it will accommodate larger vehicles, and it's short enough and low speed enough that anybody getting out of a car and somebody else driving by, there's plenty of room to move over and maintain access to all the parcels.
Should there be parking on both sides, is what you're saying, David?
That it was set up to have parking on both sides.
Okay, great, thank you. And those are the only questions I have at this time, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Neal, do you have questions?
Just one. You think I should know, being on the commission as long as I have, but this project is proposed as a tilt-up concrete building. It's a great, great building type, but it's also expensive. If this were to change to a pre-engineered metal building or something like that, would that need to go before DRC again, or would this approval move forward with a pre-engineered metal building or any other building type, as long as it looked significantly similar?
I think it really would depend on the appearance as it came in. If the staff member who was reviewing the building permit thought that it was consistent, and that it was of the same, I think even quality is probably a fair word to use. It would go straight to building permits, but I think more likely would be that it would be reviewed by the DRC staff. When we have an approval in front of us from the Planning Commission, we like to be as deferential to those plans as possible.
Thank you. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Castillo?
Thank you. My only question is, Katie, do you mind speaking to the effect of the signage again? I kind of lost my thoughts on that. What was the stipulation there?
So when the project was reviewed by the DRC, there were quite a number of signs proposed. There were 4 different logo signs and 2 different business identification signs, and the DRC felt like that might not be a coherent design, and so they asked the applicant to kind of think that through. So the bottom picture you see there is what's proposed. It's just 2 of the logo signs. So the signs are each on the projecting, the big front of the building. There's a little bit of a projection that comes off at an angle. It's kind of the entry feature. There's a logo sign on either side of that, and then the horizontally oriented business identification sign on one side. So it's a much simpler sign plan at this point.
Okay, and then you said that based on what they have presented, they're not going to have to come back, correct, for final?
So the way the resolution is written currently, unless the Planning Commission wants to make modifications, is that they could go immediately to building permits with this proposal. Any changes would require DRC to review it again.
Okay, perfect. That's the only questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Christensen?
Thank you. I was on the DRC, and I have to say that I like the building then and I like the building now. It's a very good looking project. I'm glad that the fencing is as well designed as we were hoping. It looks really good. I think the only question I have is, when we were on DRC, we were talking about the street parking. I know it's a private road, and I know that there's a private road agreement. We didn't get a copy of that agreement or look to see what that verbiage said. So my only concern in that regard is if there's any information that refers in that shared road agreement about what type of vehicles like, are there any restrictions there? I mean, if I'm a you know, an owner there and I work there, I mean, are we going to see 10-wheelers parked there? Are we going to see, you know, when they run out of room for storage box vans, are they allowed to park there? That's kind of what I was wondering, what the verbiage was with that shared road agreement. So if somebody would enlighten me on that, that would be really helpful.
So the applicant is here with us this evening, and I'm sure they'll have more to add. We did discuss the shared access easement. I think my understanding, I have not seen it either, but that it's a fairly standard shared access. I don't think it gets into those specifics. It definitely does not limit parking on this property to this property only. So I think it is certainly possible that the parking within American Way, you know, as it's being used, will probably be shared a bit back and forth. But the applicant was amenable to changing that agreement to make the parking spaces specific. It does become difficult for staff to try to track something like that. It would become a private property enforcement of where people park and so forth. So I think that's an option available to the Planning Commission to ask for modifications to that shared agreement. But I think you should keep in mind the difficulty of enforcement for city staff.
I understand, and I appreciate that. I could see that that would be difficult for city staff to do. That's kind of why I'm looking to say maybe we should be addressing this now. I know it's not a norm for us anyway, and it is a private road. So, you know, technically it is their property, although it is an allowed use for emergency vehicles and things like that. My only, I'm not trying to make this difficult for the applicant by saying, hey, you need to put verbiage in there. But my point is we're allowing this to offset some of the parking issue. And if we're talking about future use as well, I could see that that would be something that could be gobbled up. Now, I like that they've added in the 5 future stalls on the side for the box storage vans, or where they're going to store the box vans. I think that's very smart. And I know we've got the loading dock, which probably you can put big trucks and just park them there as well. I think what I was looking for is just to see if the applicant could clarify the language, but it sounds to me like it is pretty much just a basic road agreement, and we're just kind of leaping on faith here to give them the approval to have this extra parking for the use. Am I missing something on that allowable parking for that? And if I am, I'm all ears, because I love the project. I think it's beautiful.
I think the proposal is slightly irregular in that we don't tend to, you know, the American Way has a street name. It, you know, as you go out there, it feels like a street. But it is an unusual situation where it's a private road. It's been overbuilt for what the city requires. I've lost my train of thought, but Darren and I were trying to brainstorm on similar situations. I guess there's a private I think it's a private road over by Kennedy Club Fitness and the Lube and Go place that's there. And I think there's some private parking within that road as well. There are some, possibly some other situations that we've done this similar, but it is not a very common practice. I think that's fair.
And I think my only concern is honestly, and I know this, it's more for the applicants and the other property owners in that area, because I could see that if they didn't have some type of verbiage that might affect it down the road. But all in all, everything else that was before the DRC committee, I mean, you guys have answered it. You guys have done a great job. Staff, I appreciate you guys getting them to nail those things down, and the applicant, I'm really happy with the way it looks. And again, I really like the fencing too. So those are my questions at this time.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Christensen. Commissioner Gibson, do you have questions?
Yes, ma'am. I have a couple. I'll preface it by saying that I too find this to be a very attractive project, very, very attractive design for what is basically a warehouse building. So my first question is, on page 10, Katie, there's verbiage that says that staff recommends the Planning Commission determine the proposed use is more similar to warehousing or wholesale or distribution. Are you suggesting in that we need to do a specific finding, or is that finding somewhere in the resolution that would satisfy that recommendation?
Yeah, probably the use of the word finding there. Finding has such a specific word, it might not have been the best word choice. I think the purpose of the paragraph was really just to point out that this really is a warehouse use, and so those are the standards that we should be applying to the project.
Okay, all right, perfect. My other question is, I'm a little lost, so hopefully you can walk me through and help me understand the issue with the Kit Fox mitigation. So on page 37, and I see, and I read through that, and then following pages having to do with the mitigation. That who exactly is responsible for the mitigation for this particular mitigation, and how would this applicant meet that obligation?
So my understanding is the way that the mitigation was set up as a part of the parcel map process was that each individual property owner would complete their own mitigation. And so there is I'm sure you've noticed a graphic included on page 41. Mr. Wyman was responsible for the blue crosshatch section. So he had the lion's share, 2.3 acres that included mitigation for the road, the drainage easements that go along the southern property line, et cetera. So that mitigation has been completed. Before we issue grading permits for any of the 3 remaining lots, that property owner would be responsible for their mitigation. So the All About Event site would be the green striped section, which is 0.88 acres. Before we issue a grading permit, we will require the applicant to work with California Fish and Wildlife to make sure that that mitigation has been completed.
Okay, awesome. Those are my only questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have just one question on the drawing labeled A6.0, and it's also on your slide of the elevations, Katie, the one that shows the signage. It on the far right, on the far right of the elevation, there's a note that says sign 25 square feet, but that was one of the signs I believe that we had them delete. So I'm guessing that's an error. And if so, that should probably be taken out of the drawings for our approval.
I think you're correct, Chairperson Jorgensen. That should have been deleted. I think it just was using CAD error. Yes, we could make that an amendment. You could propose that as an amendment and it can be omitted, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, I think it's a very attractive project for a warehouse building. I think it's very impressive. So other than that, it looks very good to me. Why don't we now open the public hearing? And first, if the applicant or the applicant's representative would like to speak, please do so now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good evening, Chairperson and Commissioners. Thank you for receiving our project this evening. We're very proud to present this project to you. It's not often that we get a phone call to do a 25,000 square foot industrial warehouse and also afforded the opportunity to put some design features to it. So we commend the owner, Stephen Herring, for allowing us to take some liberties and give us a bit of architectural features. We tried to relate the features to also what's going on inside with the big showroom windows and things in the front, and obviously storage down the side, but we had some windows to get some daylighting in there. You guys have been over the building several times, so I won't belabor that. I appreciate all the nice comments. I did want to address a couple things. One is we did reduce the signage, and that note that you saw with the 25 square feet was for the medallion. So if you want to just extend the note over to the medallion, you'll have an idea how many square feet that medallion is. The fencing that we are proposing was a 6 foot tall fence. I'm sorry that note didn't get on there. We were proposing to use slat wood in front and around the corner just to extend the feature, make it a little bit more opaque from the street. and the airport road view. The remainder of the fence is going to be a 6-foot tall wrought iron fence. The parking, we need 25 stalls. We have 21, so we're there's 8 on the side that are over there. We're using 4 of them in our parking count. The agreement that Weeman was explaining to me was that originally they had a 20-foot wide road. They wanted to make it a little more magnanimous, and they talked to the city to allow parking on both sides to be allowed to the parking to be counted on each adjacent property. We sent that agreement into the city, and I agree there's not a lot of control in that. Greg Weeman and Michael Hill still own all 4 parcels. They're willing to add and amend that parking agreement, as you guys might want to add some notes to that. We do feel we have enough parking on the site. We have 10 box trucks over there and a loading dock to keep everything contained on site. If this building does get converted to something else, we have, like Katie was saying in her great presentation, the ability to fill up the loading dock and add more stalls over there. Looks like we can probably get 7 stalls in there, something like that. We've got easily 5 parallel parking stalls on the south side of the building, and if anybody wanted to go tandem in there for employees, they can get another 5. So we think we've got the parking pretty well covered. Again, if you guys want to add a note and amend the agreement to the street, we'd be happy to do that. Other than that, I think we've covered most everything on and around the building. So I appreciate your time and again all the kind comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak at this time?
Yes, ma'am. We have Greg Wyman on the line. He's one of the neighbors.
All right. Mr. Wyman, please go ahead. Mr. Wyman, did you want to address the commission?
Chairperson? Oh, Greg, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
All right, please go ahead. Tell us your name, please,
Okay.
and your address for the record.
My name is Greg Weeman, and 2921 American Way, Paso Robles.
All right, go ahead, please.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, speaking with Darren and with David Athey, when we were developing this, it's real hard to see what was going to happen in the future. I knew what I wanted, and I decided to put my stuff in the back and make it more presentable in the front, but we didn't want a small road going down the middle. So the option came up talking with Darren and David, well, we could put parking on the street and make the street, even though it's private, more like a city street. So we decided to do that, which I think looks a lot better. But the intent always was that the parking on that street on the north side would be for the north lot, and on the south side of the street would be for the south lot. And it's not really that way in the road agreement, but that was always our intent.
Okay, thank you. Was there anything else that you wanted to address on the project?
No, other than it's a heck of a project, and I'm glad they're putting it in Paso Robles.
Thank you. All right, and staff, are there any other members of the general public wishing to speak?
No, ma'am, there is not.
All right, so we'll close the public hearing, and I think I will bring this back then to the commission for discussion. So let's go around again as we did before. Commissioner Kogler, do you have comments for us?
No additional comments, Madam Chair. I'm satisfied. I think it's a great project.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Davis?
No additional comments. I too think it's a beautiful project and I am excited to see it in Paso Robles.
Thank you. Commissioner Neal?
No comments.
Commissioner Castillo?
No comments.
Commissioner Christensen?
Thank you. And thank you for the applicant for speaking up. I want to make a clarification so he understands why I'm bringing this issue up. If I think that they may want to consider this for their own good, for any future change of property ownership out there, if someone else takes over that property, and I'm, let's say, planning to use some of that parking for my visitors or what have you, but my neighbor wants to park semi-trucks there, that's an issue that's could be a problem down the road. This is what I foresee for that road parking. Overall, other than that, I love the project. I think it's awesome, and I really appreciate the effort that they put into this. So, but that concern about the road, I think, is something that can very well come back and cause a problem down the road later. Obviously, that's a pun, but not intended. So thank you, and I love the project.
Thank you. Commissioner Gibson?
I have no further comments. Thank you.
All right. And my only comment is that I am in support of this project as presented. So at this point, would a commissioner like to make a motion?
I will make a motion, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Neal.
I move approval of draft resolution A approving plan development 20-07 based on findings and subject to site-specific conditions of approval. And included in that is the removal of the sign note on the northeast corner as shown on the east elevation.
All right. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second
that.
I think I heard Commissioner Kogler go first. So moved by Commissioner Neal, seconded by Commissioner Kogler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Kogler?
Aye.
Commissioner Castillo?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Chairperson Jorgensen?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Great. Thank you. Thank you to the applicant. A great project. All right. We will move on to our next agenda item, which is discussion items. Staff?
Yes, we don't have any formal discussion items agendized for tonight.
All right. Thank you. Then our consent calendar, comprised of 3 meeting minutes for the Design Review Committee. Are there any comments from commissioners on those? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
As Commissioner Gibson, I move approval of the Development Review Committee minutes of November 9th, November 16th, and November 23rd, 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is that Commissioner Castillo?
Yes, Chairwoman.
Okay, so moved by Commissioner Gibson, seconded by Commissioner Castillo. May we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Castillo?
Aye.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Kogler?
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Chairperson Jorgensen?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And next we have other reports. Staff?
Yeah, first is the Housing Constraints and Advisory Committee report along with the housing element. So at the last council meeting on December 1st, the City Council did approve the housing element and the accompanying zone changes as recommended by the Planning Commission. So we've submitted that to the state. We've met the deadlines on that. And now we're moving ahead with implementation. We do expect to start a series of updates to the zoning code, which were required or envisioned as part of the housing element policy adoption process. So we will be impaneling the Housing Constraints and Advisory Committee again during that process. So they'll act kind of as a steering committee as we go through some of these zoning code updates. We don't have an exact work program for which items we're going to take first, but the Housing Constraints Committee will be making recommendations to the Planning Commission next year on those items.
All right, thank you.
Any questions on that? Okay, the second report is Development Review Committee rotation schedule for 2021. So we've included in the agenda a draft schedule for next year. So we're asking the commission either to recommend approval of this or make changes, and then we'll reflect that in the minutes, and that'll be our adopted schedule moving forward.
So commissioners, any comments or changes that you'd like to request? Sounds
Yes,
like not. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Ferguson, this is Commissioner Castillo. My term is currently ending February 28th. Due to retiring in early 2022, I'm going to continue my responsibilities and duties with the commission after my term is up.
Well, thank you for everything you've done with us for the last few years. And we'll miss you, Leo.
Thank you. I hope to come back later, and I just need to focus on my retirement and I need to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So
some of us are still working on that.
Yeah, good luck with that, Leo. Let me know how you do.
Yeah, when you figure it out, let me know.
I will take cliff notes for everybody. I have enjoyed my time, and I regrettably have to, not necessarily but finish my 2-year term up and focus on myself and my family.
All right. Well, thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, so staff, I assume we would just leave blank the months that Commissioner Castillo was assigned, and that would be the new commissioner to be named at that date?
Yeah, I think
at the end of February.
I think at this point, we'll just leave Castillo there for July, August, and September. And then as we go through the reappointment process next year, we can replace Castillo's name with whoever the new commissioner is at that point.
Okay, very good. All right. Planning Commissioner comments. Let's go backwards from our usual order. Commissioner Gibson?
I would just like to wish my fellow commissioners and staff a merry holiday season and whatever you're celebrate, Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, and wish you joy and happiness. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Christensen.
Well, I'd like to say happy holidays to everyone as well, and I hope they have a great time over the next few weeks, enjoying their time indoors. But I want to say I'm sorry to see Leo go, but I appreciate that he's been here doing service for this community. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Castillo.
Thank you. Ditto to the happy holiday stuff, everybody. And I promise this probably isn't the last you'll see me. I do plan on coming back at some point if the city will have me. But for now, I need to realign myself. And like I said, figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So thank you for your guys' support as far as fellow commissioners and guidance and help in this process that was very new for a military guy trying to be a civilian on the side. So very much thank yous.
Thank you. Commissioner Neal.
Echo my fellow commissioners and happy holidays and happy new year. And we'll see you the 1st of January. Or literally, not literally see you. We'll talk to you for January.
All right. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Commissioner Castillo. Your input was so valuable. I'm really sad to see you go, and I do encourage you to come back. And I just really want to thank you for your service. Wish everybody happy holidays, and hey, we'll get through this COVID thing. It's been a tough time, but I'm looking forward to a very happy and better new year.
Commissioner Kogler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's hard to believe that this is our last meeting of 2020. Maybe we should cue the balloons or something right now in some ways. But on a serious side, I would like to say that I think the way the city has gone about having to address all of the things that have happened in the last year and how we meet and how we communicate, it's had its rough spots earlier on, but I think it's worked out very well, and I appreciate the efforts of staff in that regard. I would also give kudos to you, Madam Chair. I think it's difficult to be someone who's trying to coordinate and run these meetings when you can't see faces and you can't read body language and you can't do a number of other things that in-person allows. And so I'm hopeful we can get back to that as soon as it's healthy to do so, and I trust we will, but I think you've done an admirable job as well. And to my fellow commissioners, this has been an interesting time, and I think all of us have kind of had to react to this in different ways, and I think the way we've coalesced as a commission, new commission to a degree, has been admirable, and I really look back very fondly at what we've accomplished in the last year. And I guess then finally, Leo, I, like the others, wish you the best, and particularly as you transition from military life to civilian life. And I know how capable you are, and I know that you're going to find the right solution that works for you and your family, so I congratulate you. So that's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kogler. And I would just remind Commissioner Castillo that we're not done with you till the end of February. So we're going to be seeing you next year, seeing quote unquote, as we see, as we sort of see, but hear you now. And yes, I was trying to explain to a colleague today the challenges of trying to share and participate in a public meeting on complex issues without seeing each other, without body language, without eye contact, without the subtle little things of a wrinkled brow or tapping fingers or somebody looking out the window, which probably tells me that they're going to vote yes and are done talking about this. It's tough for all of us, and I really want to thank staff because we have such complete and detailed reports. I think it's the only thing, honestly, that gets us through this without the human necessity of other communication means. So thank you to staff, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody. And may 2021 be a much happier experience for all of us. So see you all in January. Staff comments.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, yeah, this is the last meeting of 2020. I'd just like to congratulate the Planning Commission on a great year. I'll have to remind you, you have recommended the approval of 3 EIRs plus a housing element this year. So some of these projects, these specific plans and annexations go back decades. I think the Chandler Ranch project goes back to the 1980s. So I think this commission in this year, despite all the challenges, has probably accomplished more than a couple decades worth of previous commissions actually did. So you should be very proud of yourself on that. We are going to be soliciting for new applications for the Planning Commission starting in January. So I believe Commissioner Neal, your term is up as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll definitely be notifying you since Commissioner Castillo's mentioned that he won't be reapplying. If the commissioners are aware of anybody else in the public that might be interested, please let them know that January we'll be soliciting applications. Council typically does the interviews in February, and then we'll be doing the reorganization process and kicking off the new commission in March, depending on how things are going with the pandemic. Hopefully we're back to some sort of in-person meetings sometime early in 2021, but we'll have to see on that. So upcoming Planning Commission items, your next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for January 12th. Looks like we have a couple time extensions for some hotels. There's a Boys and Girls Club project on Oak Street that Katie's working with Larry Gabriel's office on as well. So we expect that to be ready. Potentially the old Clausen's Radiator building on Spring Street may be ready for a CUP removal as well. January 26th, we expect that the Housing Authority will have their project, the senior housing project next to the J.C. Penney's building, that vacant pad in the Walmart Center. That was one of the mixed-use sites identified in the housing element. We do expect that'll be ready for the Planning Commission's consideration in early January. And we may have an auto repair CUP as well. And then we've talked with the Community Services and Police Department about bringing a presentation to the Planning Commission on city homeless policies and services. So we're looking at probably February to have that on the agenda. ECHO, along with People Self-Help Housing and the Housing Authority of San Luis Obispo, have acquired the Motel 6 building. ECHO is currently beginning to ramp up that operation as a emergency/homeless shelter. Their goal is to be able to provide 50 rooms or beds in the near future there. The remainder of the units are going to be operated by People Self-Help Housing as kind of more of a long-term transitional housing type project. So we'll have a lot more information on that. We'll be able to provide that to the Planning Commission when we make that report. We have a lot of commercial and residential projects that are coming in. So despite the pandemic, we still are seeing a lot of activity permit-wise. We see a lot of interest in the Olson South Chandler specific plan. There's some buyers interested there. And then we're working with LAFCO to get ready for the LAFCO annexation hearings on the Gateway project as well. So it looks like 2021 will be a busy, good year for us once again. And that'll conclude staff's report.
All right. Thank you, Warren. All right, then, do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting tonight?
I move to adjourn the meeting. This is Commissioner Christensen.
Thank you, Commissioner Christensen. And I'm going to declare it a consensus at that point. So good night, everyone. Thank you. Merry Christmas. See you in 2021.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Happy holidays.